It's about time. Good evening, it's time for the news on Times Television, TTV. You're with me, Ronald Mpaso. First, the headlines. Malawi's battle against thin plastics far from over as a court injunction remains in place. Angry people in Chileka, Blantyre burn a Headstone Prophetic Ministries church over funeral rights disagreements. And in other news, experts challenge African countries on mental health. We also have the latest in international news. Stay with us. In our first story, Malawi's battle against thin plastics is far from over as a court injunction still restrains officials from enforcing a ban on plastics. Currently, thin plastics continue to be the most common litter in cities and districts across the country. A court order obtained by a plastic manufacturer restrains Malawi Environmental Protection Authority officials from enforcing a ban on the thin plastics. Patience Lunda has a report.
Spot checks conducted by Times in Mzuzu, Zomba, Blantyre and Lilongwe cities showed that thin plastics have accumulated a lot in the Central Business District. In an interview, Center for Environmental Policy and Advocacy, SEPA Executive Director Hilbert Mwalukomo said the problem has worsened because there is high demand for thin plastics amongst local Malawians. Mwalukomo suggested behavior change on the usage of thin plastics, saying people heavily rely on plastics than using other alternatives such as bags.
Each one of us as citizens should be asking, what are we doing to reduce the amount of plastics that we see? And depending on what answers we have, then we should be able to take necessary action. I mean, there is no point whatsoever to keep accumulating these plastics when we actually do not know where they will end up to be.
On his part, Maloto Shinkombero, an environmental activist, said the issue needs a collective effort by several quarters, such as the Ministries of Information, Homeland Security, Forestry and Natural Resources, including the judiciary, to enforce and inform the public on the dangers of using thin plastics.
The government departments have to work together in making sure that justice is being achieved through this process. Conserve our environment and make sure that our cities, our surroundings are clean, which are overcrowded by these single plastics.
But Director of Environment at the Ministry of Forestry and Natural Resources, Dawonga Luka, said plans are underway to vacate the injunction. Golden Plastics, a plastic manufacturer, obtained the stay order at the Supreme Court in July this year. Thin plastics may take years to decompose and toxic substances are released into the soil when plastic bags perish under sunlight, and if plastic bags are burnt, they release a toxic substance into the air, causing ambient air pollution.
Angry people in Chileka, Blantyre have burned a motor vehicle and a Headstone Prophetic Ministries International Church over funeral arrangement disagreements. Times has gathered that Group Village headman Nkata, who died recently, belonged to both the church and the Gulewankulu cult. The fracas started when the two sides could not agree as to who should lead the funeral ceremony. Jameson Chaluka rushed to the scene and now reports.
Upon the death of Group Village headman Nkata in Chileka, the family was divided on whether the funeral should follow the religious or Gulewankulu cultural practices. Titus Misi, the ministry's spokesperson, said the situation was hostile during burial on Saturday, such that they hurriedly left the graveyard.
Group Nkata was fellowshipping with us, so the family made a decision and invited us to help them out with the funeral arrangements, which we had an amicable cooperation with the family all throughout. But Friday night, as our people were retiring from the vigil that we had been holding, some noise started, and it appeared that some people, whether in the family or in the village circles, were not amused with us taking charge of the funeral. They wanted it to go with the Nyau people. But the family still stood their ground, and yesterday they asked us to proceed with the funeral arrangements. Howbeit, as we were proceeding with the funeral arrangements, people started making noise and protesting, to the extent that as we left the home to get to the graveyard, there was so much turmoil, we decided to just leave amicably and let the people do what they want to do.
Times understands that Gule Wankulu actually came at the funeral house but was chased away by the section of the family which was for the church. Chirega police spokesperson Jonathan Filippo concurred with Misi, saying the dispute was mainly to do with who was supposed to lead the funeral service between the church and the Gule Wankulu culture.
Our village headman, Mr. Nkata, has just passed away recently. Being a village headman, here in Chileka, around our area, most of our village headmans, they are said to be believers of traditional cultures, whereby they say once the village headman or anyone who is a member of these traditional beliefs has to be buried according to their custom. So recently, before the deceased passed away, he joined the Christian gathering which was there, which is said to have been burnt down, as we are saying now. The time he passed away is when these misunderstanding came up, whereby the church members, which are the Christians, they were saying they want their member as a Christian to be buried the way Christian has to be done. So later is when these believers, who are traditional believers, they say no, according to our custom, as our village headman has to be buried the way we want.
Filippo said the police so far have arrested one person who they believe will lead them to the other suspects. Father Martin Kalimbe said in such circumstances there is always need for both sides to exercise tolerance and reach a common conclusion. He said during the funeral of the late Vice President Justin Malewezi, for example, both Gule Wankulu and the Anglican Church played their roles at given times and things went on smoothly. Headstone Prophetic Ministries International is headed by Ambuye Overton Makuta, who also believes is the God himself.
Minibus Owners Association of Malawi is in talks with stakeholders to enforce defensive driving training as a requirement for all minibus drivers in the country. The association has also disowned the new minibus fares which are in circulation following the rise in fuel pump prices recently. Llewellyn Impasa has filed this report, read by Eric Msikiti.
The Minibus Owners Association of Malawi has said the change in fuel prices is not the only factor that may trigger a rise in minibus fares in the country. But Southern Region Chapter Chairperson Peter Mvalo says the association is in talks with the government and other stakeholders for a revised threshold.
We are not there to raise the prices, but it's just a concern so that maybe those people who are concerned about looking into the prices, like the safety, so they have to look at the concerns of owners. We want it just to clarify on the issue that MOAM is not there to raise prices when the fuel increase, because it's illegal to do that. We stopped to do pricing. But when they want to raise the prices, they should think also how the price has been increased. They have to also consider about the passengers welfare.
One of the minibus business owners in Blantyre, Wiseman Jambo, says there is need for all stakeholders, including the police and city councils, to work together in bringing sanity to the sector.
We have learned a lot. They have introduced the new insurance company, which is going to help many of the owners of the minibus, because we have been paying insurances to, I think this is the to some companies which are very high, Now the introduction of CIC insurance will help us because we'll be paying less, and the benefits is different from the other insurance companies.
During the talks, stakeholders also discussed the toll gates, fuel price increases, illegal operation of taxis, and a defensive driver's course for minibus drivers.
Center for Social Accountability and Transparency, CSAT, has encouraged journalists to report more on financial mismanagement in district councils. The organization's executive director, Willie Kambwandira, says reporting such issues will ensure that perpetrators are brought to book. Kambwandira made the call in Lilongwe during a media orientation on public finance management as well as access to information law. Henderson Msusa has more in this report read by Wezi Gausi.
Kambwandira says journalists play a very critical role, and as such, they need to provide information that will be able to help the citizenry to make informed decisions on issues that affect them and monitor public funds on how they are being used. One of the journalists who works for Zodiac Broadcasting Station, Aunyango Nkoma, concurred with Kambwandira that journalists have a role to play in ensuring that there is transparency in public projects by reporting of financial mismanagement.
And information is very important because information helps citizens to be able to monitor public funds, public resources. Information helps citizens to be able to make informed decisions on issues that affect them. Information is very also critical when we are talking about prevention of corruption in this country. So, as you can tell, journalists plays a very important role.
Meanwhile, the organization, with funding from GIZ, has launched a 5-month project called Supporting Government in Public Finance Management through Citizen Engagement, which is expected to be implemented in the 20 districts of the country.
You're watching the news on Times Television, TTV. We now take a break. We'll be back shortly.
We all start differently, but we can all start with the strongest protection. Because some start early, others start late. Some from little homes, others from big ones. Some start together, or all on their own.
It doesn't matter how you start, as long as you start strong. With new Colgate's Maximum Cavity Protection. Now with fluoride plus arginine for 4 times more strengthening power. So that you can give them the strongest start to their day. Colgate. Start strong, stay.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like if your bank was really there for you, as they say? We mean really there for you when you need to recharge. Or your most intimate moments. You got it right here. While you're focused on things that matter, you can trust that First Capital Bank is focused on you.
If there's one thing that all soaps do, it's wash. From buckets to basins, bathrooms to streams, and everything in between.
All soaps wash.
Yes, but Protex is different. Its reinvented formula with flaxseed oil boosts your skin's natural anti-germ defenses by 10 times more, protecting you against 99.9% of germs. So what keeps us healthy?
Protex!
Good health starts here.
Pamene chilichonse chili bwino, zinthu zosayembekezera zimathanso kuchitika. Koma tikagwirana manja ndi kulimbika, tikhoza kusintha zinthu mdera lathu. Tonse pamodzi tikhoza kukwaniritsa zinthu zapatali. Ndipo tonse pamodzi tikhoza kufikira masomphenya a mmudzi wathu. mukagwiritsa ntchito TNM poyimba phone, kutumiza ma SMS, kugwiritsa ntchito internet, kugwiritsa ntchito mpamba chaka chilichonse, TNM idzapereka 1% kapena 1 kwacha pa 100 kwacha iliyonse ya ndalama kuti ithandizire pa chitukuko chomwe anthu akufuna mdera lawo. Imbani *4888# kuti mutsimikize TA wanu. Tikabwera pamodzi ndi kugwirizana chinthu chimodzi, tingathe kupanga zinthu zazikulu m'mudzi wathu. TNM mudzi wathu. Umodzi unamanga mtolo. Ndondomeko zizatsatidwa.
Welcome back. Director of Social Welfare Services, Dina Gumulira, has urged African governments to provide psychosocial support to their citizens. Gumulira was speaking during the opening of a regional psychosocial support initiative in Lilongwe. She said African governments need to make investments towards psychosocial services.
There is diversity in terms of causes of mental health, psychosocial support needs. We are human beings. We are living in a world where we meet different social problems. People are different because of the inner strengths that people do possess. People react differently when they are faced with issues. So, depending on different people, they get impacted in terms of their psychosocial, needs. So this makes them to seek for mental health psychosocial needs.
That's the Director of Social Services in the Ministry of Gender, Dina Gumulira. And a representative of one of the organizations at the gathering, Felix Kakoa, has committed to the promotion of the psychosocial well-being of people.
In terms of the gains, we are making some strides. There are different outcomes that we anticipated. We have achieved some of them. The bringing together of different stakeholders like this is one of them. We are able to work together as a team to make sure that we promote the different activities that we carry out. The challenges are still there. That is why we still come together and work with the government to make sure that our efforts are not carried out by specific organizations only, but the government should be at the central point, coordinating and making sure that the efforts are mainstreamed into the system, guided by the different policies that we have as a country.
That's the board chairperson for REPSI, and REPSI is a technical partner to the Southern Africa Development Community, SADC, in programs targeting orphans, vulnerable children and the youth. Shortage of treatment centers is still disrupting Malawi's efforts against cancer. Currently, people living with cancer have to travel to Mzuzu Central Hospital, Queen Elizabeth Central Hospital, Zomba Central Hospital and Kamuzu Central Hospital. That is for treatment. And the Ministry of Health spokesperson Adrian Chikumbe has since described the situation as dire. Josephine Chipofia has more in this report read by Sam Kalimira.
Chikumbe said the treatment centers only provide chemotherapy and surgery treatment, with those in need of radiotherapy being sent abroad. Chikumbe adds that failure to treat cancer in district hospital is a huge setback.
In the other treatment centers, we are able to provide chemotherapy, but also surgeries, but we can't provide radiotherapy. We can only do this after we have finalized the cancer center in Lilongwe. Then we'll be able to provide radiotherapy as well. Meanwhile, patients requiring radiotherapy are sent abroad.
Malawi is currently observing the National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which aims at increasing awareness on breast cancer prevention. Commenting on the matter, health activist Maziko Matemba says there is need for resources to train more oncologists.
For government to make sure that they increase the resources for the health sector. Treating cancer is very expensive, it's not cheap. That's why we need also to do more on prevention because some cancers are preventable, like cervical cancer and other cancers.
Recently, Cancer Survivors Association in the Northern Region complained that Mzuzu Central Hospital has no oncologist to assist cancer patients. General Secretary for the grouping, Sibongile Tembo, said patients are sent either to Lilongwe or Blantyre to access services. As of 2020, there were 17,936 cancer patients in the country, of which 4,145 were cervical cancer patients, while 1,486 were suffering from breast cancer and 1,756 had esophagus cancer.
Legal Aid Bureau has recruited 60 additional staff, including 16 lawyers, to clear and dispose of a backlog of cases that is at the institution. The Legal Affairs Committee of Parliament says the move will help many Malawians access justice. Wezi Gausi has a report.
The Bureau has been complaining about being understaffed at the same time having a backlog of work. Legal Affairs Committee Chairperson Peter Dimba says what has happened is commendable, although not adequate. He says it will go a long way in clearing the backlog of cases the Bureau has and ease access to justice by poor Malawians who cannot afford private lawyers to represent them. The Legal Aid Bureau Executive Director Masauko Chamkakara says the recruitment has come as a relief to them. He says as it stands, the Bureau has about 23,000 people seeking justice through them. In the 2021 financial year, the Bureau requested for 2 billion kwacha from the national budget, but the Minister of Finance approved 674 million kwacha. Recently, there has been a lot of debate surrounding paralegals to practice in court in small cases to help ease the works of the Bureau.
The Ministry of Tourism has announced plans to conduct an animal population census at Nyika National Park. Minister of Tourism Michael Usi announced the plans to quantify the number and groups of animals in the park after talks with officials from the German government and Peace Parks Foundation. As Sam Kalimira reports, there are fears of eco-imbalance of wild animals in the national park.
The recent census was conducted in 2015 and there were about 150 elephants, over 80 leopards among other species. Apparently, officials have expressed worry over alarming levels of bushfires and poaching. Statistics indicate that in 2020, 85 people were arrested for poaching, and as of September this year, 35 people had been arrested. According to Usi, the poachers are not only destroying the animals, but they are also destroying the ecosystem.
I've seen the extent to which fires have negatively affected the park. It's quite big. There are some forests which have been depleted. They are no longer there, and have been informed by the experts that they will never be part of Nyika. Those areas are dead and we should forget about them. So this is very worrisome, because if this is not checked, as I've already said, then we are killing Nyika slowly.
In his remarks, Peace Parks Foundation Chief Executive Officer Wena Mebak said they can always bring the animals back, but the main concern is the damage caused by poachers.
What you need to be worried about is people start killing animals for profit and killing animals for exploitation. So that's the concern that we have here. There's a lot of poaching going on. Take a lot of meat and they go and sell it. That's the type of poaching that you don't want.
In his remarks, German Embassy Deputy Head of Development Cooperation Nat Gomet said the census is a good idea to see how many animals can be reintroduced into the park, as currently the numbers are relatively low.
We need to increase this number, and this means we need to increase poaching. We need to stop poaching and to give them income opportunities, to give them an opportunity to not to need to go poaching.
The government of Malawi entered into a 5-year-long project with Peace Park Foundation through funds from Germany government and the European Union, called the Malawi-Zambia Transfrontier Conservation Area, which is worth about 25 billion kwacha.
That's the news for now, but before we go, the headlines again. Malawi's battle against thin plastics far from over as a court injunction remains in place. Angry people in Chileka Blantyre burn a headstone Prophetic Ministries church over funeral rights disagreements. And in other news, experts challenge African countries on mental health. Remember, you can get more on these and other stories by visiting our website www.times.mw, liking our Facebook page Times 360 Malawi, subscribing to 1895, and following us on Twitter at Times 360 Malawi. Remember to wash your hands regularly, observe social and physical distance, mask up, and get vaccinated to prevent COVID-19. Stay safe. You've been with me, Ronald Mpaso, and I wish you a lovely night.